All right. Hey, everybody. Dr. Sean Talbot here. We're going to get going in just a second here. We're going to talk about something I think you'll find really interesting tonight. We're going to talk about peptides. So let me get my windows open real quick, and then I'll give you an orientation of what how we're gonna cover things tonight. So I want this guy over here. And because this is a webinar, if you guys have questions as we're going through, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions because peptides are a really complicated, confusing area right now. Um, put your questions in the chat. I'll stop periodically and answer whatever needs answering. Um, and we'll get going. I want to share my screen, get my slides up here, and then I can orient everybody to how we're gonna handle this tonight. Okay, beautiful. You should be able to see that. I'm going to move one thing over real quick before I start. Look, it just turned the top of the hour, so it's perfect. And here's my chat window. Okay, so you should be able to see my slides now. Um, and what you see on the screen is I'm using some of the same slides that I used in a talk that I gave this past weekend. So I gave the keynote lecture, the closing keynote lecture at this conference called HealCon. It's like the holistic nutrition conference. It's the conference of this organization, the National Association for Nutrition Professionals, and it's all about holistic nutrition. So I talked about peptides, hype or hope, strategies to support or substitute. And one of the things you can see the bullet points there, which I'll talk about in a second. One of the things that I really tried to get across to these nutrition professionals was that I'm not pro peptide. I'm not anti peptide. I am pro client experience, right? I want people to try to figure out what is going to be the best thing for them. And so sometimes that's going to be people who are afraid of injecting a synthetic peptide into their body and they want to do something different. So that's when we might, try to do some of the same things that peptides do, but do it with nutrition or do it with supplements or do it with sort of natural interventions. There will be other people who are doing the natural interventions, and now they want something more. They want to be more advanced, and for them, the peptide therapy might be the right thing. So we're going to go through in this next hour that we have together how peptide therapies work and why they're trending. We're going to talk about sort of the background with all the wellness peptides that are out there, nutritional strategies that can mimic or complement peptide benefits, and an important point that I'm going to make over and over again is that there are lots of people out there who are taking peptides right now and not getting any benefits. Not because of the peptide, not because of their regimen, not because of they're on the wrong stack, but because their baseline biochemistry, their sort of background metabolism that's happening in their body is blocking what that peptide is trying to do because they might be overstressed and they have too much cortisol. They might be overinflamed and they have too many of these things called cytokines. They might have gut imbalances and that's interfering with the whole gut brain axis signaling. There can be all sorts of reasons for it. So we're going to talk about some of those things. And how can you make informed decisions about peptide hype versus natural hope, right? So I want to really try to thread that needle, right? Again, I'll say it again and again and again over the next 60 minutes or so. I'm not pro peptide, I'm not anti peptide, but I want people to make the right decisions for them. Okay, so let's get rolling into this. And if you're just joining, a whole bunch of people just jumped on. Put your questions in the chat, and I'll answer them as I can going through here. Okay, before we get into all the details of peptides, I want to sort of set the stage, right? Everybody who talks about peptides these days has a particular bias. My training is in nutritional biochemistry, right? So that is my bias. My bias is that biochemistry drives behavior. Biochemistry drives your level of performance. Biochemistry is at the root of how you perform physically and mentally and what your metabolism is doing. So a lot of my bias is that I come back to the biochemistry. So whether we're talking about nutrition interventions, or we're talking about lifestyle interventions, or we're talking about peptide interventions, I always want to come back to the biochemistry so that I can understand, and hopefully I'll be able to convey that to you guys so that you can understand what is this regimen supposed to be doing, right? If we can understand the biochemistry, then we have a better idea of how to use it in a precision way to get us to where we want to go, whether that's to lose weight or gain muscle or have an anti-aging effect or a mental fitness effect or whatever else. That's what my whole company is about. So my company is called Three Waves Wellness. We were voted this year as a startup star, so like startup of the year kind of thing, by a big organization called Nutri Ingredients. It's sort of the Wall Street Journal of the nutrition industry. We're the holistic mental fitness company. A lot of what I do is biochemistry, but it is in a very particular way around what we call the gut immune brain axis. A lot of this biochemistry comes from your gut. Your microbiome, the collection of trillions of bacteria in your gut, makes a lot of the signals that have effects in your body. We make most of our neurotransmitters in the gut. We make short chain fatty acids. We make hormones. We make a gazillion different types of peptides. We're going to talk about some of them tonight. So the gut and how it signals through to the brain and the rest of the body is a really, really important part of what we do. When you get that right, when you get that gut immune brain axis balanced, you can you can reduce your burnout and your fatigue and your anxiety and your sleep problems, and you can replace all those problems with the opposite, which is then you sleep well, then you have good energy, then you're motivated, then you have clear thinking, then you're resilient and you're able to be ready to go and things like that. We also do, and I'm not going to talk about this too much tonight. We also do some VIP coaching programs. We have a bunch of new programs that are going to launch later on this month. So stay tuned for that. If you want to sign up for our newsletter, you can be the first to know. One of the reasons that we were nominated or won this Startup of the Year award is because we were the first ones to establish a mental fitness retreat. I'm speaking to you from that right now in coastal Massachusetts. We've trained about 1,000 mental fitness coaches, which is very cool. We're actually running a really cool promotion on that I'll just make mention on right now. And we've launched a handful of science-based nutraceuticals and an affiliate program. So these are the things like this is the like I love the science, but if we can apply that science in a way that people can actually use it and experience it and share it with other people, that's when it becomes really exciting. So that's my bias. Okay. What I'm not going to talk about tonight, in this next hour or so that we have together, I'm not going to go down a whole laundry list of here's this peptide, here's what it does, here's the research, here's the pros and cons, because there's dozens and dozens of them, right? It'd be a very boring lecture. It wouldn't be very very helpful for everybody. So I wrote this book. This book came out about a week ago. Came out a few days before my keynote at HealCon. And it's free. It's a free ebook. This book, even though it's not like a textbook about peptides, it does go through all the top wellness peptides. So, there's a whole section on repair peptides. There's a whole section on weight loss peptides. There's a whole section on longevity peptides, et cetera, et cetera. And it will go through each one and say, here's what it is. Here's what it does, like the biochemistry of it. Here's what we know about it scientifically. And basically, here's the grade. Is it ready for prime time, or is it a wacky research chemical that you probably shouldn't be injecting into your body? So you can go download that if you go here, doctalbot.com/peptide. You can just download it, and it's about 60 pages or so. It's got a lot of scientific references in it. And the purpose of it is really to help you, have a little manual so you can, make the right decisions. Is this peptide that you're considering or hearing a lot about on social media? Is this something you should consider? If you are, how can you find it? That kind of stuff. So anyway, it's there for you. It's an ebook. I will be updating it periodically as the research changes and as we know more about each one of these peptides. So go get that and download it and let me know what you think. This month, May, as I'm recording this, is Mental Health Awareness Month. So I'm also next week. Yeah, next week, end of next week, I'm going to be heading over to Portugal to speak at this or participate. I'll tell you how I'm participating in the World Happiness Summit, which is sometimes just called WOHASU. Um, this is happening May 16th and 17th in Portugal. I'm really excited to go there. This is Forbes magazine has called this one of the top 5 leadership summits on the planet. So I'm really excited to be attending. I'm even more excited that I'm going to be one of the featured mental fitness coaches there. So I'm going to help the attendees sort of navigate what is happening there and how they can not just go there and learn, right? That's great, but like I said just a few minutes ago, what's even greater is when you can learn something and then apply it to your life. And that's what makes the science real, right? It's not just the science, it's the application of that science into your world. And that's what a bunch of us are going to do at Wohasu. So I'll give you a full update on that on another Wellness Wednesday. Last thing before we start getting into peptides is because this is Mental Wellness Awareness Month, we're offering a really cool promotion on our Certified Mental Wellness Coach course. So this is the one, 1,000 or so people have gone through this course. Probably half, I would say, of our students have taken the course just for themselves. They're not out there coaching other people. They just did it so they could learn about the microbiome and the gut-brain axis and the heart-brain axis, and their mindset and their movement patterns and all that kind of stuff, right? So a lot of people just take it so they can learn for themselves, so they can improve their own performance. The other half of the students are, they're health coaches or they're nutritionists or they're personal trainers or they're chiropractors, and they have used our training to sort of bolt on to their other training so they can help their clients in different ways. It's approved for 16 continuing education units from a number of different scientific organizations: American College of Sports Medicine, National Association for Nutrition Professionals, American Nutrition Association, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really, really well endorsed, if you will. And it's typically $12.99, but this month, because it's Mental Health Awareness Month, we've got a special where it's $8.99. So you get to save $400, right? You get the training, you get the CEUs, you get access to our mental fitness community, which is an online area where you can ask questions and you can interact with other people. There's all kinds of special recordings there and scientific articles and deep dives about metabolism. So if that's something that you're into, this is a great way to get that training. And so you can go here, doctalbot.com, and instead of saying /peptides to get the ebook, you can say /NANP, because this is something that I offered, last week at my keynote. And you can get all the details to save $400 if that's something that jacks you up. Okay. So somebody put in here, whoa, I'm going to be in Lisbon on May 16th. So yeah, if you go to wohasu.org, probably, if you just type in World Happiness Summit, you'll find the website. You can find all the details that are there. So there's that. So all right, let's get into this. People always want to know what my personal peptide stack is. And I'm gonna tell you. So this is a picture from a competition I did long time ago now. I was the world's fittest CEO at one point in my career. This right, I can see on my shirt right there. It says CEO Endurance Challenge 2013. So in 2013, I came in second, and in 2014, I came in first. So that was 10 years ago ish, right? 12 years ago. So I wish that I had the knowledge then that I do now, right? I wish I understood 12 years ago more about the gut-brain axis and the microbiome and the peptide biochemistry and things like that, because I would have used those kinds of things to, improve my performance even more. So here are the peptides that I take. I take 3 stacks every single day, almost every single day. I dose myself with an energy nootropic stack, right? So this is increasing my energy, motivation, mental focus, brain power. You can see this one called melanocortin, this one called hypocretin, this one called CRH, corticotropin releasing hormone. These send signals in my body to help with circadian rhythm and waking up your brain and cortisol signaling and things like that, really getting you ready to face the stresses of the day, and perform, right? Be there at a high state of activation and resilience. I dose myself with a longevity stack. This is a bigger one. I'm not getting any younger. I'll be how old will I be this year? I'll be 59 this year. In a couple of months. And so longevity peptides are, like I'm right in that demographic. So beta endorphin, irisin, BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, growth hormone, IGF-1, which is insulin like growth factor 1. And these are all about getting your brain and your body in sync. So, pain modulation, metabolic flexibility, meaning being able to like shift from carbohydrate to fat metabolism, as your body needs it, brain plasticity, tissue repair, exercise recovery, all those sorts of things. And then the third stack that I dose myself with every day is a metabolism stack. So this is probably, peptides are a lot of alphabet soup, but this is the alphabet soup that most people have heard of before, right? This is the peptide that has sort of kicked off this craze that we're in right now. GLP-1s. GLP-1s are the ones you've heard of before. It's Ozempic, it's Wegovy. It's part of another kind of weight loss drug called Mounjaro and Zepbound. Those also have something else called GIP. So the combination of those two helps with insulin signaling. As a result of that, it helps with blood sugar control. As a result of that, it helps with fat metabolism. And GLP-1s also have a very strong satiety signal, so they make you full, so your appetite is controlled. So some of these other ones, PYY, CCK, these are ones that help with your overall metabolism. So an energy nootropic stack, a longevity stack, and a metabolism stack. That sounds like a lot. That's a dozen right there. And I'm doing that every single morning. But I think you guys will be interested to hear that I don't actually inject any of these. I get these, and here's a little more detailed version of it. I get these from lifestyle. I get these from exposing myself to sunlight, moving my body, having a good workout, some kind of exercise, and then eating the right foods. So sunlight, exercise, and eating will naturally stimulate all of those. Now, that's not to say that you couldn't, have another peptide on top of all of this that would amplify some of that signaling. But one of the reasons that I'm starting here before we get into some of the injection stuff is because there's a difference between taking peptides and making peptides. When you go out there in the wellness world and you see all the claims that are being made for all these peptides, it's very enticing, right? Let's be honest, right? All the claims that are being made. Wait a minute, I can just order this injection and I can just mix it up myself and I can just go boop and I'm gonna lose weight and I'm not gonna be hungry and my muscles are gonna grow and I'm gonna live longer and my brain's gonna be sharper and my immune system's gonna be stronger. That's a very, like I said, enticing pitch. Most of it's bullshit, though. To say it very, very, plainly. There is some science, but most of the outlandish claims that you see are outlandish claims. There's the kernel of science. I'm going to try to unpack some of that and show you how you can use that kernel of science to your advantage. But peptides overall are very exciting, very complicated. Quality and safety are the biggest blind spots right now. So I'll cover a little bit about how you can sort of decipher, is this a legit peptide or not? And then nutrition can mimic or amplify peptide pathways. Again, whether you're taking them or not taking them, there are approaches that we can take. I'm going to end tonight with 3 case studies. We're going to do a case study on somebody who wants to lose weight, case study on somebody who wants to gain muscle, and a case study on somebody who wants longevity benefits, right? Maybe not living longer, but living for a period of time with less problems, right? Metabolism and brain function and things like that. So that's how we're going to go through. So this peptide gold rush that we're in right now, all this hype, right, really has been kicked off by the GLP-1s. The GLP-1s, which are FDA approved, put through big clinical trials. You can literally get them on every street corner. You can get them on hundreds of different websites by just filling out a quick little survey. Really, really easy to get. This has kind of normalized the idea of injecting yourself at home, right? There's millions of people who have been injecting themselves with pens for years now, and getting a certain level of benefit. Some people get really nice benefits from GLP-1s. Some people get almost no benefits. Some people get really bad side effects, right? So there's a very much a gradation of these benefits, and that goes for all peptides. I find it funny, or well, interesting, that there's so much hype about, this one dude who said, I use these peptides, this peptide stack, and I get these amazing benefits. And that could be perfectly true. But what you don't hear about is somebody who used the exact same peptide stack and got nothing. Like took it and noticed absolutely nothing. And you don't hear about the people who took the same exact peptide stack and got bad side effects or an infection or whatever. We're gonna talk about some of those things. But GLP-1s are sort of what kicked it off and normalized this whole thing. But now you can get them at wellness clinics. There's biohackers all over the internet, and it's leading to a lot of confusion. F First of all, because of this gradation of effectiveness, and there can be lots of reasons for that. There's a lot of confusion because of the miraculous claims don't usually line up with the limited scientific evidence. And there's a gray market, right? A lot of times we don't know where these compounds are coming from, and that's my biggest problem with it for most people, is that most of these are coming from like random chemical laboratories in China or India, and you really don't necessarily know uh, where they're coming from, what the purity is, but I'll unpack that a little bit more when I get there. Okay. So okay, I was just going to say something, but I'll save it for later. So let's talk about what peptides are in the first place. Okay, so peptides are just chains of amino acids. So they're kind of like proteins. Proteins are bigger chains of amino acids, if you will. But amino acids, things like, glycine, cysteine, leucine, right? All the different amino acids that you find in a protein food, you can make a peptide out of that. Generally, in biochemistry, we will say that a peptide is anywhere from two amino acids. So one amino acid is just an amino acid. As soon as you put two amino acids together, that's a dipeptide, di meaning two. You put three together, and it's a tripeptide. Once you go above three and you start talking about four, five, six, then we call it a polypeptide. And we use that word peptide all the way up until about 50-ish amino acids. Once it goes beyond that, then we're talking about bigger chains, and we'll refer to those as proteins usually. So, short proteins, and they can be big proteins. So, two to 50. Back when I was in school, graduate school, a million years ago, the dogma in nutritional biochemistry was that we could absorb when we ate a protein or a peptide, our body would digest it, right? It would get digested partially in the stomach, partially in the small intestines, and it would be chopped up by our digestive enzymes, and we would absorb amino acids, so one, we would absorb dipeptides, and we would absorb tripeptides, three, and that was it. Anything above that, it would, if you had a polypeptide that was four or five or six or 20, there was no way that it could be nutritionally active, because it would be chopped up. Nowadays, that isn't the dogma anymore. And one of the reasons that we know that is that there are longer peptides that we can get from our diets, dairy peptides, collagen peptides, just to use two quick examples that we know are longer than four. that are absorbed and do get transported to target tissues, right? We know that collagen peptides, for example, we can chop them up in very specific ways, what are called specific collagen peptides. And you chop it up this way, it can get to your joints and have a benefit for arthritis. You chop it up this other way, it can get to your bones and have a benefit for osteoporosis. You chop it up this other way, it can get to your skin and have a benefit for wrinkles and beauty and things like that, right? So we know that it's not just, amino acids, dipeptides, tripeptides, that there's something where it gets in, a little bit more. But that's still a little bit murky. There's a particular ingredient out there that I like called Peptistrong. It's a peptide extracted from fava beans, and it's a pretty long peptide. I think if I remember right, it might be 9, 11, something like that. And that has benefits for stimulating muscle protein synthesis, right? So you take it when you work out and you're gonna grow more muscle, or lose less muscle if you're in a diet situation, right? I have no affiliation with that company. I've just, looked at it for different formulations for different companies. There's a way that we can do that. But once you get up to the bigger peptides, let's use insulin for an example. Insulin is a peptide. You'll see insulin on the next slide. Um, it's 51 amino acids long, big. And if you were to eat insulin, this is why diabetics have to inject insulin, right? Because if you were to eat it, that 51 amino acids would be chopped up and basically broken, right? Once it's chopped up, it doesn't work the same way. It doesn't have the same signaling effects in the body. So you chop it up, and now you have two pieces that or 10 pieces, depending on how your digestive enzymes, do the breaking of the peptide bonds. So once it's broken, it doesn't work anymore. You can't just break it in two, absorb those two pieces, and then stitch them together again once they're back in your bloodstream. It doesn't work that way. So that's the problem with a lot of these peptides, that you can't eat them. You have to inject them because they're sort of bigger structures, and I'll show you some of those structures in a second. But peptides aren't new. Peptides in the wellness space have really just exploded over the last year, but they've been around for a long time. This is just a list, just to give you an idea of, there's lots of different peptides that have been, here's all the brand names, here's all the companies that have been used for a lot of different disease states and approved as, FDA approved drugs for a long period of time, right? So here you've got, insulin for diabetes, 1982, 1985 for some of these cancer peptides. You can see the dates, right? But it's not a new development, peptide therapy for different health indications. What is new is two things. The first one is that many of the FDA approved peptides are now being used what is called off label. That's one development that has happened a lot in the last couple years. And the other one is that a lot of research chemicals, things that aren't approved drugs, have come into the wellness space as what I call wellness peptides, and I sort of do that in quotation marks. So let's talk about the first one first, which is this off-label usage of FDA-approved peptides. You can see it. You can see a list of them on the screen right now. So GLP-1 peptides, they are approved for diabetes and obesity. This is semaglutide, which is Ozempic and Wegovy, and tirzepatide, which is Mounjaro and Zepbound. So these are approved for diabetes and obesity, but they're being used off-label for a whole bunch of other indications. And there's, some research, not a lot of research on these areas. But once something is approved by the FDA, anybody with prescribing authority, so an MD, a DO, anybody who can prescribe a drug, can prescribe that drug for whatever they want to. And so you see a lot of them being used now for addiction, migraines, autoimmune diseases, PCOS, and a whole bunch of other things, which is great. If you can get benefits from those areas, hallelujah. These are, safe enough kinds of drugs, right? They're not free of side effects. They have plenty of side effects for a lot of people. But if you want to give them a try, one of the places that GLP-1s I think have been really kind of interesting is that they can shut off food noise in a lot of people, and sometimes that food noise can be associated with addiction. So this is the idea of your brain always craving, always seeking, always driving you towards that thing. And that thing might be food, it might be fast food, it might be junk food, it might be processed food. And if you can shut off that signal, it makes it easier for you to stay on a good dietary regimen and therefore lose weight. That same noise can be noise for alcohol, can be noise for nicotine, can be noise for something else. That's one of the reasons that you see it being used in addiction medicine. So terrific, right? That's great. Here's some other ones. You might have seen these ones before. Sermorelin, tesamorelin. These are in a category I talk about in the peptide book as like the morellins. There's a whole bunch of them. Another one called ipamorelin. And they're growth hormone signals, right? What we call growth hormone secretagogues. It's not growth hormone itself. It's a signal that tells your body to make growth hormone. And so those have been approved by the FDA for children with growth hormone deficiency, so like dwarfism, and also for it's something called HIV lipodystrophy, which is where you start like depositing fat in different areas of the body where you shouldn't. So, sometimes you get a fat hump. Sometimes you get these like fat nodules in your abdominal area, sometimes around the face. So that can, that's not something that you want. These drugs have been approved for these indications, but now because it's growth hormone secretion, it's being used by, wellness influencers for muscle mass and by bodybuilders and, things like that. So, increase your muscle mass, reduce your belly fat. Who doesn't want that? But do you want to get it from a growth hormone releaser? Maybe, maybe not. That's, we'll talk about that as we go through here. This one, thymosin alpha 1, is kind of an immune system enhancer. That's not what it was approved for. It was approved for chronic Hep B. So, that's off-label usage of an FDA-approved drug. I'm less concerned about this kind of thing because going through the FDA a process, I'm no fan of the FDA, right? But the one good thing is that if something does get through the whole FDA approval process and it becomes a commercial drug, it's gone through a lot of testing. Doesn't mean it's perfectly safe, right? Like I said, for GLP-1s, there's lots of people who have lots of side effects with those kinds of things. Lots of people who do perfectly fine on them too. But at least it's gone through some level of scientific evidence for safety, for efficacy, for purity, for all the things that you want for a synthetic chemical. The ones on the next page, not so much. These are ones that are non-FDA approved injectable peptides that if you look at this asterisk that I've put at the bottom here, evidence of efficacy and safety from randomized trials in people. And you can just go down the list of all of this alphabet soup of all these different, what I call, again, wellness peptides. BPC 157 for tissue repair and injury healing. Here's this ipamorelin, similar to the two that I just talked about on the last slide for muscle strength, et cetera, et cetera. And you just go down, none, 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 none. There just isn't any data. If you go to any of their websites, any of the zillions of websites that are out there that are selling these, you'll see language around, has been studied for, or is investigated in, and that's great. I love research, but none of those are human clinical trials, or very, very few of them, and none of them are what we want, like randomized, placebo-controlled, double-blind, all that kind of stuff. Sometimes there's a case study, sometimes there's a few subjects, but mostly it's rodent studies or test tube studies. So test tube studies are great. It helps us understand mechanism of action. Rodent studies are great because it shows in like a living body, can this drug have an effect in a target tissue? Does it get diluted out so it doesn't work anymore, or can it have that biological effect? But there's a statistic you've probably heard before, that for every good drug idea that comes out of a laboratory, 99% of them fail before they actually get onto the market. And there's lots of reasons for that. Some of them could be commercial reasons, right? The drug company decides that it's not going to be commercially viable. It could be that it gets diluted. It could be that it gets destroyed. It could be that it's not stable in the body. It could be that you have to use too much and then that causes side effects. It could be that it doesn't work. It could be lots and lots of different reasons. And none of these that you see on the screen right now have been through any of that, right? They've only reached the very, very early stage, so they might fail at one or more of those stages. Um, One of the places that it gets a little bit scary is that some of these, because they're growth enhancers or they're what we call cellular translocators, they stimulate cells to move from one place to another. Those are metabolic pathways that are very often associated with cancer. And so, I'm not saying that any of these are causing cancer, right? We're not seeing that out there in the wild, at least cross my fingers, not yet. But we don't know. Sometimes you'll see in these rodent studies, oh, we've been injecting these rats or mice with this drug for a while, and now they're all full of tumors, right? That is a very common reason that drug pathways get stopped. So anyway, there's that kind of thing. I will say a quick word about BPC 157. There is a human trial that is very often like put up as something that shows, in these people, they injected, 12 subjects with BPC 157, and there was an enhancement of tissue repair. Tendinitis went away, or a nagging injury that wasn't healed. So out of 12, 7, 12, maybe it was 13. 13. So out of 13 subjects, 7 got benefits, 6 did not, right? That's a coin flip right there, right? So that's why you do randomized placebo-controlled clinical trials, because on a coin flip, we could be injecting saline into these people, and some will get better, some will not get better. Some will have a benefit, some will not have a benefit, right? That's why you do a controlled trial. And so, like, that one's put up a lot, and I look at it and I go, has anybody actually looked at that trial? Because if you looked at that trial, you would realize that the results, the good results, the benefits could be completely due to chance, right? Basically 50-50 option. Okay, I'll come back and talk more about BPC 157 in just a little bit. Here's another slide showing a couple of them. But the reason I put this slide up is because there are lots of peptides that we get access to in our normal day. There's lots of, if we're eating bone broth, we're getting collagen peptides. If we're eating dairy, we're getting different kinds of dairy peptides, whey peptides, casein peptides, lactoferrin peptides. This is the Peptistrong that I mentioned before. So there are supplemental peptides that we can take in dietary supplements. There are dietary ones that we can get in our baseline diet. So, there's sort of peptides all around us. Some are natural, some are synthetic. Here's what some of them look like. So I put this up here because I just want to give you a perspective for what I said earlier, that we can't eat these things and get a benefit. This is BPC 157. This is TB 500. This is part of what's sometimes called the Wolverine stack for helping athletes and people who are working out to repair and grow their muscles faster. Here's ipamorelin, et cetera, et cetera. But you see they're sort of big and complicated structures. This one down in the corner, this 3 amino acid tripeptide, is one called glutathione. Glutathione's really popular in the nutraceutical space. You can find lots of supplements out there that have glutathione. Even glutathione, being a very, very simple peptide, very often, if you just eat it and it's not protected in any particular way, it gets chopped up, and then it's not good as a detox ingredient. It's not good as a cellular antioxidant. So, even a simple one like this can fail through your digestive tract. So these big ones really don't have a hope. That's why they have to be injected. Okay, I'm going to say one quick thing before I explain this slide. So I posted up on my YouTube channel earlier today the lecture that I gave at HealCon. So if you want to go and, visit my YouTube page, you can watch that whole lecture. It was 75 minutes and 15 minutes of Q&A at the end, so hour and a half. Um, and my audience was specifically holistic nutrition professionals. So it was sort of very clinical oriented. Like, what can you do about peptides with your clients? So if you want a more of a deep dive into that, it's posted up there. It's posted up in two sections. There's the lecture as one, and then there's the Q&A period as the other. And I'll post some more things. I got a whole stack of questions that I didn't get a chance to answer, so I'm actually going to record all of those, and I'll post those up to the YouTube channel as well. So you can go and see that when it goes up. So here's the big picture. We make peptides in our gut. We make peptides in our brain. We make peptides in our heart and our kidney. We make them in our immune system. We are awash in peptides. So the question really becomes not, are you doing peptides or not doing peptides? It's basically, how are you doing peptides? Are you going to do them from a natural perspective by making them? Well, of course you are, right? There's no way to get around that. And or are you going to also do them from a synthetic, or what we would call exogenous, outside the body, and bring it in? And that's what we're going to get into. That's what we're going to get into next. Okay. So, what are these signals? Before we talk about should we take them or not take them, let's talk about what those signals are. So, if we think about peptides as signals, that's all they are. They're very different kinds of signals. I get people who ask me all the time, should I do peptides? And my question to them is, well, for what? A GLP peptide is going to signal appetite control. So if that's the signal you're looking for, sure, maybe you should consider that. But that's a really different signal than this signal from the Morellans I was talking about before, which is a growth signal. Because this is telling your brain you're less hungry, satiety. This is telling your cells to grow. Unfortunately, you can't just tell your muscle cells to grow. That's what everybody wants. But if you do one of these, you're telling every cell in your body to grow. And that could be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on what your objectives are. BPC157 that we talked about just a few minutes ago is a tissue repair signal. MOTS-c is one of several mitochondrial adaptation signals that helps you with something called mitogenesis, which is helping you grow more mitochondria, which is going to be good for your energy and your metabolism and various signaling qualities throughout the body. But think of it, I want you to think of these as just as different kinds of signals. So what's this? Right? This is a peace sign, right? That sends a signal to somebody with your hand of, hey man, have a nice day. This is also a hand signal, thumbs up. It means good job, well done. Different things. Here's hang loose, right? This is a little bit different way to say, have a nice day and relax and chill out, dude. Here's another hand signal, right? You guys have all seen this before, right? These are all signals, but they mean completely different things depending on what you're trying to convey. Peptides are the same thing. They're just signals. And so you really have to think about not, are you doing peptides or not, but what are you doing them for? What is the objective that you're trying to solve? And then you can determine, well, do I want a synthetic signal from the outside? Maybe, maybe not. Do I want an internal signal? Maybe, maybe not. Okay. Another way to think of it is this. I like to think of peptides as if they are the foreman on a construction crew. And what I mean by that is that peptide is just sending a signal. It could be a signal that says shingle the roof, or it could be a signal that says build the retaining wall, right? Those are both signals that tell the body or the construction site to do different things. And the risk, I guess, if you want to call it a risk, is that if you take that signal out of context or out of order, you might not build the house that you are intending to, right? You wouldn't say shingle the roof if the house isn't built yet. You wouldn't say shingle the roof if the shingles aren't even there yet, if they haven't come over from the hardware store, etc., right? Do we have the right bricks? Where is the mortar? These signals have to happen in a particular context. And if they're out of context, that can lead them to not work, like no effect. That can lead them to work wrong, side effect. Um, uh, so you guys get the idea. If you're making peptides, though, right? If you're taking that natural approach, that instead of exogenous, taking the peptide from outside inside, endogenous means that you're making it inside, it automatically comes in the right order. You can't put it out of order. So if you're making peptides, you're mixing the cement, pouring the foundation, framing the house, grading the landscape, and then you're shingling the roof, and then you're building the retaining wall. There's no way to do it out of order if you're doing it from a nutritional perspective or a supplement perspective. That's just the, like you get the whole package of coordinated signals when you do it from a natural approach. Okay, so let me just be clear. I'm not trying to say here that the natural approach is the right approach or the only approach in a given situation. And I'm not trying to say that an exogenous or a synthetic injectable approach is a bad situation, right? What I am saying is that they need to be coordinated with each other. And that's where I see people making the biggest mistakes, that the signals are disjointed, and because of that you go, I don't know if I'm getting any benefits out of this program, or I'm getting some benefits, but I seem to be spinning my wheels because my metabolism and my biochemistry isn't aligned in the right way. If you if you get the right signals and you have everything in order, in balance, then you're going to have a good experience, right? You need to have the right materials, you need to have the amino acids and fatty acids, you need to have the right energy, the right tools, et cetera, et cetera. Um, there are so many people right now, and this is one of the things that we talked about at the holistic nutrition conference. There's so many people that are taking GLP-1s right now that are getting so results. And the reason for that is they're doing the injection, whether it's a compounded pharmacy thing and they're getting it sent to their house, or they're getting the actual Ozempic pen, or the excuse me, etc. Um, and they're getting middling results. And the reason is that because they're not getting their protein, they're not eating their fiber, they're maybe not eating a heck of a lot of anything. So because some of these are very good appetite suppressants for the right people. So if you're not eating anything or you're not eating enough, you don't have the building blocks to fuel your metabolism. So you'll lose 30 pounds, but half of it will be muscle mass, right? And that makes you skinny fat, and that lowers your metabolism, and that doesn't help with your overall, ability to, have good nutrient partitioning and things like that. So people are taking them and going, it's not really working as well for me as it did for my friend, or as good as I hoped it was going to be, because their background biochemistry is out of balance, because their lifestyle choices are out of balance. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to the case studies. But the reality check from a biology or a biochemistry perspective is that the peptides are sending the signals, but the outcomes depend on that background of your metabolism. Part of it's gut health, part of it's inflammation, part of it is nutrient status, part of it is your sleep levels and your stress levels. And if those are out of balance while you're taking peptides and you don't have, you haven't optimized your nutrition and your exercise and your sleep and your stress and your inflammation, your gut integrity, you're basically blocking the signals, or at least introducing static between that signal that you're injecting and the rest of the body where you want that signal to have its qualities. Um, and so a lot of times what I do when I'm working with people is say, okay, if you are taking this peptide, let's make sure that we clear the way for that signal to have the most efficient qualities as possible, so that it does stimulate muscle protein synthesis, or it does stimulate fat metabolism, or it does stimulate mitochondrial biogenesis, or whatever the outcome is. Okay, outcome that they're seeking. So take a quick pause right here. This is my supplement, Zenith. I launched this about 6 months ago. Named one of the top supplements in the industry for 2026. Really proud of it. This can be, in a lot of ways, a peptide enhancer because it's lowering your cortisol. It's improving your sleep quality. It's helping your gut integrity. It's helping your microbiome diversity, right? It's doing all the things in the gut and across the gut-brain axis that if they're out of balance, they're introducing static into the system. So you remove that static, your brain fog goes away, your energy and motivation comes back, your resilience improves. And those are all signals. The way you feel are all signals that your biochemistry is in balance. And that balanced biochemistry is the same exact thing that we would be trying to do to help your peptides work better. So, in a lot of ways, so Zenith right here says gut brain resilience for everyday excellence. Everyday excellence is because you have that balanced biochemistry, and that balanced biochemistry is driving better behavior, but it's also improving the efficiency of all those peptide signals, whether they're endogenous peptides that you're making or they're exogenous peptides that you're taking. Okay, so this is a place where we're seeing a lot of pickup for Zenith to help people who are on those peptide journeys. And if you want, you can scan that QR code there. You can get on our mailing list, and you can hear all about what Zenith does. Okay, back to our peptides. So where do these things come from? This, I think, is the biggest obstacle to the science around peptides, the usage around peptides, the regulatory framework around peptides. We don't have a good understanding of where most of these wellness peptides are actually coming from. We do know this. We know that most of the API, so API stands for active pharmaceutical ingredient. This could be FDA approved drugs, it could be research chemicals, it could be anything. The majority of them come from India and China. That's not necessarily bad, right? I source a lot of my ingredients from India and China when I'm formulating nutraceuticals, right? The difference though is that I can go to India or China and I can stand in the field where I'm sourcing my shatavari or where I'm sourcing my turmeric or where I'm sourcing my whatever, right? I can stand in the field. I can do a clipping of the plants. I can make sure that they are what they say they are, which is identity testing. I can test for heavy metals. I can test for pesticide residues. I can do all that kind of stuff. I can shake the hand of the farmer who grows it. I can shake the hand of the person who is picking it and taking it over to the extraction facility. So like that is, where it comes from is one thing. But like being able to identify and have some transparency in that supply chain, that for me is like rule number one, basically. What is it? Where's it coming from? How's it being grown? Is it pure? Is it potent? Does it have what I want? And does it not have other things that I don't want? Like I can do that like literally to the field where it's grown. For peptides, we don't know that. Um, Unfortunately, where a lot of these are probably coming from is just random chemistry labs. Chem lab is really easy to set up. You can set it up literally in a garage. Making peptides is not difficult. I could go back and show you the structure of BPC 157. We know what the peptide chain looks like. You can literally, if you have the right resin column, you can go, oh, here's the peptide recipe. This amino acid. Then we'll add this amino acid. Then we'll add this one. Then we'll add this one. Then we'll add this one. Broop. It's literally just like making like that game Connect Four where you're putting the little checkers down into the slidey thing. It's just like that on a chemistry level. And then once it's built, you just strip it off with a solvent, and you've got your peptide. Simple to do, cheap to do. Lots and lots of laboratories can do it. So there's lots of labs like gray market labs that do this. You can see what the problem is there. Um, what's the purity? It doesn't have anything else in it. If it's 99% pure, what's that other 1%? It could be something toxic. I'll talk more about that on the next slide. Where some of these things come from, though, isn't just some garage chemistry lab. Some of them are coming from really nice labs, but they're going out the back door. So this might be a laboratory that is maybe producing semaglutide, which is the GLP-1 that's in Ozempic. They might be producing that, and selling it to the compounding pharmacies, but they also might be selling it out the back door on TikTok Shop, or Instagram, or some Joe Blow's website. And so there again, like, what's the chain of custody? What does the purity look like? When you start asking those kinds of questions, um, then it gets a little iffy. I'm going to skip over this one, but I'll come back to it. This is why it's iffy, because very often what you'll see is that you'll get shipped a vial, or usually a box of vials, right? Probably will buy it as like, a 12 pack, so that you have one for each month. You have to mix it up yourself. You have to get the right concentration. Once you mix it up, you have to store it the right way. Some of them need to be refrigerated. You have to make sure that you keep it sterile every time you take a sample out. You have to learn how to inject yourself with a syringe, not a little pen. Um, but the first question is, identity. How do you know what's in that vial is actually what you think it is? Who verified that? Most of these laboratories are not set up. They can make it, but they're not set up to necessarily test identity the way that you would want it test. So that's one. Is it really BPC 157? Is it really ipamorelin? Is it really TB 500? Right? That's the first question, right? I'll talk about certificates of analysis in just a second. Purity is another one. If you can get an identity testing, which is a very specialized chemical test, then the question is like, okay, it really is BPC 157, but how pure is it? It really is in that vial, but are there also heavy metals? Are there also microbes like salmonella or E. coli? Are there also these things called endotoxins, which can cause inflammation and immune system reaction? They're basically you know pieces of the cell wall of a bacteria. So that's a question that has to be done by another laboratory. The same labs typically do not have identity testing and purity testing in the same laboratory. So that's usually two different C of A's. And then what's the content? What is the purity here? That's going to be important for meaning how many milligrams or micrograms of the thing is in this vial. That's going to have implications for how you mix it up and how you dose it and how often you dose it and things like that. So it gets very, very complicated very, very quickly if it's not, coming from a, FDA approved kind of a drug. Again, not necessarily a bad thing if you want to educate yourself and learn how to read a C of A, how to figure out if this C of A is doctored or just completely made up. I've seen hundreds of them at this point, C of A's that are just fake, right? A true C of A is gonna have a couple of very important things. It's gonna have the lot number that's gonna match the lot number on your little vial, so that you know that this was tested and this result matches up with what you're actually about to inject yourself with. A C of A is never just one thing, because there's an identity C of A, there's a purity C of A, there's a content C of A. So companies that are saying like, here's our one-page C of A, you're good to go, it's typically fake. So that right there is my biggest problem with the whole peptide world. People will sometimes fall back on this, which is the previous slide that I skipped over. They'll fall back on this and say, well, wait a minute. I got it from a compounding pharmacy, and aren't they regulated? They are regulated. So they're regulated at the national level in certain ways, but they're mostly regulated at the state level. So I live in the state of Massachusetts. A few years ago, we had a compounding pharmacy in the state of Massachusetts that got shut down because they were compounding things that were not allowed. And it actually ended up killing some people. You want to make sure that your compounding pharmacy is doing it the right way and has their state regulations, and they're doing things above board. Many of these peptides, wellness peptides, are labeled as research chemicals. And because of that, the compounding pharmacy shouldn't be able to use them. So if they are, they might be skirting some of the regulations, and you probably don't want that. So it's very, very much buyer beware, right? So peptides aren't new. Compounding pharmacies aren't new. They've all been around for a long time, but the research chemical piece of it is very new. And what that means is that when you go to one of these websites, you're going to see something like this. Somewhere on the website, you're going to find language like this. This product is strictly intended for research use only. This product is not to be used as a drug, food, or cosmetic. Users are responsible for complying with all applicable laws and regulations, handling use of this product. Introducing this product into humans or animals by any route is strictly prohibited by law. Handling this product should be only undertaken by licensed qualified professionals, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read all of this to you. But like, look at the fine print when you're looking at this kind of stuff, because you're going to go, wait a minute. This is a research chemical. Wait a minute. This is for investigational use only. Wait a minute. This is, that should give you a little bit of pause, along with what I just said about purity and potency and identity and things like that, right? So you really, really need to buy from a trusted purveyor, work with somebody who knows what they're doing, right? So when I'm working with people, we're looking at bloods, we're looking at urines, we're looking at microbiome tests, we're looking at, we're looking at how they're feeling, we're looking at all kinds of stuff. We're doing the monitoring to make sure that the combination of a synthetic thing and a natural thing is taking this person in the right direction, right? And we're, looking for potential problems, looking for potential side effects. So going it alone, or going it with just, that guy on TikTok or that gal on Instagram is fraught, in a lot of different ways. So what can we do if we want the benefits of peptides, but we're a little concerned about, should we go this direction or this direction? Well, the first place, right? I'm a nutritional biochemist, right? So you're probably understand why I'm leaning towards this direction. Why don't we look at how we can match the signal that you're trying to get? Remember, peptides are signals. Why don't we try to match the signal, with a natural approach? So GLP-1 release. Instead of injecting semaglutide, maybe we start eating more fiber and we see what sort of a level of GLP release we're going to get. AMP activation, which is a mitochondrial thing, polyphenols, muscle building, protein, mitochondrial signaling, exercise, kind of like what I opened up with. Excuse me. Let me just say this, about natural signaling. It's never going to be as potent as the synthetic signal. And I'll use GLP-1s as an example. There's lots of ways we can stimulate GLP-1 signal, right? Eat more protein, eat more fiber, eat more polyphenols, supplement with a bacteria called Akkermansia. We have Akkermansia in Zenith also. Those will all stimulate GLP-1 synthesis, right? So you'll get an appetite effect, you'll get a gut integrity effect, you'll get a metabolism effect. Wonderful. But that effect is about 1,000 times less potent than a stick with a semaglutide, with a GLP-1 agonist. So the synthetic version stays around longer in the body. It signals more strongly to the brain from a satiety perspective. It's not broken down as quickly. So, natural GLP-1 signaling is going to be a couple of minutes probably. Synthetic GLP-1 signaling is going to be hours and higher potency, right? So don't believe anybody who tells you like, oh, berberine is nature's Ozempic, right? It does stimulate like any of these, polyphenol, flavonoid kinds of things. It will stimulate the production of GLP-1, but it's much, much lower in magnitude, right? So it's true, but it's a little disingenuous to say that it's gonna replace something like, one of these synthetic peptides. Okay. But when you make them, the advantage is that GLP-1 signal might be lower, but then you get other signals at the same time. So when I eat something, I'm getting some GLP-1 and I'm getting some CCK and I'm getting some PYY. So you're getting a multitude of signals, and sometimes that multitude of signals can be as effective for certain people as one very strong signal in the case of a GLP-1, right? So we have to consider all these other things: your diet, your microbiome activity, your exercise, your circadian rhythm, etc. So I talked about GLP-1s a little bit already. I think I'm going to skip this. Here's Akkermansia. I just mentioned that. So you take an Akkermansia supplement, it's going to help with that signaling pathway. But again, it's an effect. It's not the same magnitude of an effect, but it can help in those same ways. I talked about collagen peptides already. If you cleave them, if you hydrolyze the collagen molecule in just the right way, you can get one structure that stimulates chondrocytes, so you get a joint cartilage benefit. You can do it a different way. You can get something that helps osteoblasts for bones. You can do it a different way. You can hydrolyze. You can get a stimulation of fibroblasts, which are going to help skin and wrinkles and skin tone and hydration levels and things like that. So there's different ways that we can use these nutritional peptides to target the kinds of signals that we want based on the benefits that we're looking for. This is just like a little flashcard that I put here for you. So you have it here on the slide. You have a much expanded version in the peptide book that you can download at the doctalbot.com/peptide. Here's another flashcard. We have, in our certified mental wellness coach course, we have a module about peptides, right? That talks about some of the things that I'm talking about here, and we go into, each of these different categories. But again, you've got the book now. Taking versus making. I'm going to skip over this. Okay, I want to get to the case studies real quick. So each of these case studies are in a particular area. I've got one for weight loss, one for muscle building, one for longevity, because those are the big areas. There are also peptides for beauty. There are also peptides for your immune system. There's peptides for mental focus and things like that. I'm just going to focus the case studies on these three. And we'll go through them, and we'll, some of the things I've already talked about, so we can go through these pretty quickly. So here's the first one. A weight loss client for GLP-1s. Doctor recommended a GLP-1 medication. We've got Serena Williams here. She wants to lose 30 to 40 pounds and improve her energy. Her symptoms are hunger, constant cravings, and trouble losing weight. That's great. If she goes on a GLP-1, she might get some great benefits. She might get, like I said before, she might get some modest benefits. She might get some serious side effects. And the side effects tend to be lots of muscle loss, lots of nausea, bloating, those sorts of things. Because one of the things that GLP-1s do is they slow down your gastrointestinal transit time. So food sits in your GI tract longer. That can lead to you feeling bloated and nauseous and throwing up and things like that. That's probably the number one reason that people quit their GLP-1 drugs, is because they feel crummy all the time. Some people will develop SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, because the food is sitting there and you get bacterial growth in places that you shouldn't. So, they're not always perfect for a lot of people, but they can be revolutionary for certain people. Here's the mechanism. Suppresses appetite, slows gastric emptying, improves insulin regulation, therefore improves blood sugar control, glucose control. Weight loss is mainly from lower calorie intake. But what we're seeing now is that a lot of the weight loss, 30 to 40% in most cases, is also coming from muscle mass loss. So you might be nauseous and you might be losing muscle mass, neither of which are good things. And so one of the things I really emphasize for people is that if you're going to try one of these drugs, great, they're there. If you have side effects, you're going to need a backup plan, and you're also going to need a plan for when you come off of the GLP-1, right? You can't be on these drugs forever. Some people will go on them for a while, lose their weight, and then go on micro doses so that they're getting that GLP-1 signal on a regular basis, but they can live more of a regular life, right? They can eat more foods and not be quite as bloated. And, they will tend to gain about 10 pounds back. Like if you lose 30 pounds, your post GLP-1 plan should probably include the understanding that you're going to gain some of that weight back. Hopefully not all of it, but that certainly does happen. And this is the kind of support plan that I would put somebody on if they were using a GLP-1, external peptide. Increase their fermentable fiber and their resistant starch, because those will be fermented by the gut bacteria. You'll make short chain fatty acids, and that will help with your GLP-1 release. So you can do that along with an akkermansia, along with adequate protein. All of that is going to help your microdosing work better, and or help you continue that GLP-1 signal if you go off the drug completely. Adequate protein, electrolytes, probiotics, motility enhancers, polyphenols, making sure you're getting your sleep and controlling your stress and your inflammation. all of that should be part of your plan while you're on GLP-1s and part of your post GLP plan, what sometimes people call post Zempic, when you come off those drugs. Okay, so that's a sort of quick case study on somebody who's looking at weight loss peptides. Let's look at this one. You have a muscle building client who is interested in the Wolverine stack, which is probably the hottest one that you see on TikTok and Instagram right now. It's a combination of BPC 157 and TB 500, and sometimes you'll see the growth hormone peptides, any of those Morellins in there. So this is Hugh, 57. He wants to build muscle and recover faster. And he's training five times a week, but he's plateaued. So this is someone where they're exercising, they're eating right, they're getting their sleep, they're doing all the things, and they've been getting benefits, and then they get stuck. Could you use a peptide stack, or maybe a compounded semaglutide for weight loss, along with a sermorelin for muscle building or for growth stimulation? You could use those to amplify the baseline goodness of what they're already doing, right? But it's a subtle difference, but it's a really important difference between this person who has been doing all the things and then plateaued. They're using the peptide signal to amplify their benefits. They're not the person who's taking the Wolverine stack and sitting on their couch playing video games, or not attending to their diet, or only going to the gym a couple of times a week and missing some of their workouts. Or they're like, I see a lot of people in this category where they're getting their protein, they're going to the gym, they're hitting it hard, but they're only getting 5 hours of sleep. And you do that, you are putting up a massive biochemical obstacle in terms of inflammation and cortisol and insulin resistance. And you're basically stopping the peptide signal in its tracks. So that person gets on a Wolverine stack and they go, it didn't work for me. Well, if you had gotten 8 hours of sleep instead of 5 hours of sleep, the peptide stack probably would have worked a heck of a lot better. Okay. So you can see where that goes. In that person, I would say, you know what? Let's work on your sleep hygiene first before we try one of these stacks. And then if it's appropriate at the right time, then we move into something. And again, who doesn't want to lose weight and gain muscle at the same time, right? The promise of it is tantalizing and very hard to resist for a lot of people. Here's the mechanisms. This is why this is like, as a biochemist, I love the promise of some of these peptides, because the mechanism makes a lot of sense in a lot of situations. Even if we don't have the data in humans, we can go, all right, we can see why it would potentially work. And then depending on your risk tolerance, and who you are and what your background is and what your baseline biochemistry looks like and all the things that we've already talked about, maybe it makes sense for you, maybe not. And if it makes sense for you, make sure we have proper monitoring, and then, people are peeing on a stick and, sticking their finger and sending in a poop sample and doing all the things so we can monitor, is this having the signaling effects and the healing effects and the growth effects that we want in a proper way. But if you were to go and say, well, show me the research, it's not there. And this is I'll just say again, as a disconnect for like where the peptide world is and where the supplement world is, right? So if I tried to develop a supplement and I had a good mechanism of action, a good story about how it should work, but I didn't have any human clinical data to show that it does work in the people that I'm trying to sell it to, I would get skewered. Like something like this, like my Zenith product, right? Best product of the year, right? Best new finished product of the year. Awesome. 8 different ingredients, all with multiple clinical trials on each one of those ingredients. And in this formula, we have each of those research-backed ingredients at the same level used in the clinical trials. And if you look at our technical data sheet, there is probably, more than 50 human clinical trials on the ingredients in this bottle, right? So compare that to this Wolverine stack, exactly 0 human clinical trials. So like That's a disconnect. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't take it. It's just, where's your risk tolerance? Would you rather try something, you know, make it, take it? It's, pros and cons. So here's the recovery, muscle growth recovery strategy that you would do whether you're on peptides or not, right? They match each other. This is going to make the peptides work better if you're on them. And if you're not prepared to take them, this is going to give you the same signaling pathways so you can, go down those, go towards those benefits. Make sure you're taking enough protein. About a gram per pound of body weight is the muscle building recommendation. Make sure that's mostly from whey protein hydrolysate. That's the kind of protein that's going to be most muscle stimulating. Hydrolyzed collagen peptides, the right level so you can repair your tendons, omega-3 fatty acids for inflammation, magnesium, here's sleep optimization again for growth hormone support, polyphenols, micronutrients, to have the building blocks, to have the building materials, to have the right signals. Think back to our construction site, right? You need all of these pieces. You need the materials to make sure the engine is running in the right direction. And here's our last case study. This is our longevity client. This is Merrill, 76 years old. Has had a stellar career and wants to continue being at the top of her game. So she wants to maintain muscle. She wants to improve cognitive function. She wants to improve longevity. She's considering these to help maintain muscle mass and immune system and cognitive flexibility and things like that. So if you think about the hallmarks of aging, right? We think about all the things that we know impact the aging process, at a sort of a cellular, biochemical, genetic level. There's about a dozen, depending on the framework that you look like. We know that nutrition really impacts about five of those. So cellular senescence, right, keeping cells young and healthy, chronic inflammation, mitochondrial dysfunction, gut dysbiosis, so this is microbiome balance, and disabled autophagy. Autophagy is the process that cells use to clean themselves up. So we can massively impact those with nutrition, both our baseline diet and certain dietary supplements. So those are the ones that we focus on. And it looks like this. A longevity strategy is going to be things like making sure you're physically active, right? Moving your body, getting a polyphenol rich diet. Polyphenols are like uh, pouring gas on a fire if you're trying to improve mitochondrial function. They protect mitochondria, they stimulate the growth of new mitochondria. Polyphenols, flavonoids, things like dark chocolate, coffee, red wine, tea, are all wonderful sources of polyphenols. The protein recommendation here to maintain muscle mass while you're aging is a little bit less than it is to grow muscle when you're trying to be anabolic, but it's still a good dose of protein. 3/4 of a gram of protein per pound of body weight. Sleep optimization again. Being sleep deprived is going to make you fat. It's going to grow your belly fat. It's going to eat away your muscles. It's catabolic for muscles, and it's going to destroy your brain. So those are all bad things for your whole longevity. So sleep is really, really should be considered a superpower that you really want to cultivate. Omega-3 fatty acids for inflammation, stable metabolic health. This means balancing blood sugar and insulin sensitivity. Maybe time restricted eating. I'm not going to go too much into this. I've done a whole deep dive about intermittent fasting and time restricted eating. You can go find that on my YouTube channel if you're interested here. It's good for some people and really not good at all for other people. So I'll just leave it at that. And then maintaining microbiome diversity. That's probably the number one thing that we're learning, is an anti-aging approach, right? If you can keep your microbiome young, you can keep the whole organism young because that will be the source of neurotransmitters and hormones and peptides and the whole bunch of signals that keep us going in the right direction. So here's the key takeaways, and I'm just going to wrap it up in two or three more slides. Um, all of these case studies, like these very popular peptide areas, weight loss, muscle building, and longevity all share the same exact foundations with a little bit of a, emphasizing protein more here, fiber more there, polyphenols more there, depending on what outcome you're most interested in. And of course, we're all interested in all three of those all the time, but you have to pick and choose a little bit. So protein, fiber, polyphenols, movement, sleep. Peptides, keep this in mind as you navigate this space. As you read the book, and I hope you download it and read it, if you're a coach, as you counsel your clients, as a consumer, as you try to decide, like, is this the right path for me? Is that the right path for me? Remember, peptides are just these signals, right? They're signals, different kinds of signals. The synthetic signals tend to be faster, more powerful, but also very, very narrow. It's one signal that does one thing, and that has to be supported by all these other signals that we talked about. That's where the lifestyle interventions come in. Natural, though, it's more sustainable, it's lower in intensity and amplitude, but it's more holistic, and it's something that you can take for a long time. And then nutraceuticals are kind of in between. So you can use the baseline diet and you can amplify it to a certain extent with natural nutraceuticals, like, Akkermansias or pine barks or, different probiotic strains or whatever. And then you maybe do that and then see if you need to go to the big guns with a synthetic injectable. Okay, peptide sends signals, nutrition determines whether the body responds. The foundation is still going to be there. So I think I've said all of this kind of stuff. So I really want people to educate themselves. These calls that I do every week are a great place to do it. Our mental fitness community is a great place to do it. You can, even if you're not interested in joining the certification program, you can join our mental fitness community. It's $300 for a lifetime subscription. You get in there, you get to ask your questions, you get to see all the slides, all the background documentation, listen to all the past calls. There's more than 100 of them there. So educate yourself some way. Consult with experts, right? Come on these calls, come ask me questions. Go talk to a doctor who's done this before or a coach that like has some credentials and they're not just someone with great abs on social media. And then ultimately, the decision is what's going to be best for you. For some people, it's going to be a synthetic peptide stack. For other people, it's going to be nutraceuticals. For other people, it's going to be just doing as well as they can with their nutrition and lifestyle. Okay, so that's the wrap up. I want to leave you here with some of the places to follow me. So, and most of the channels, I'm Doc Talbot. On YouTube, I'm Dr. Sean Talbot. I've got lots of books on Amazon. I've got a new one coming out in a couple of months that I'm really excited about. But for now, go get the peptide book at doctalbot.com/peptide. If you're interested in the course, our certified mental wellness course, go doctalbot.com/NANP. And if you're interested in our mental fitness community, $300 for lifetime access and a great learning opportunity for you to dive deep and educate yourself. Okay. Thanks a lot for jumping in here. I don't see any more questions up in the chat. But if you have them, send them in to me and I'll answer them as I can on Instagram and LinkedIn and YouTube and all the places you can find me. Okay. Thanks a lot, you guys. See you next time. Bye-bye.